In this video, we will unpack the science behind the ADD brain. As you will remember, in my last video, I discussed that ADD is a neurological disorder, meaning that it impacts the brain, and the structure, the functioning of the brain is what causes these ADD symptoms. Before we continue, I would like to share that in today's discussion and today's video, I will be sharing information that is coming primarily from the research and teachings of Dr. Russell Barkley. Dr. Barkley is an ADHD expert, and he has written extensively about the ADHD disorder. And he's an expert in the field and has, again, many books and lots of videos online as well that you can learn more about ADD. And he provides information about research. He has done his own research. So he is one of many experts out there when it comes to ADD. There are other viewpoints and experts who have to share their own take on ADD. However, we will focus on those in a future video, and we'll be sharing whether or not there are alternative viewpoints and what the alternative viewpoints are saying about ADD ADHD. Now you might be asking yourself or might be curious that how is the brain impacted when a person has ADD? One of the things that researchers have found, and especially Dr. Barkley has mentioned, that when it comes to the brain development of the prefrontal cortex, or primarily the areas in the front where the executive function skills are coming from, these areas of the brain are 2 to 3% smaller when a person has ADD than in an average brain. Now, you might think that is just, a small difference. 2 to 3% is not very big. However, as we know and as we have seen over the years, that we can see people do struggle and this does impact. So this 2 to 3% lack of growth in the brain does have a huge impact in a person's life and their executive functioning skills, which we're going to get into in just a moment. Dr. Russell Barkley also says that he has found writings about what appears to be this ADD diagnosis long before we have discovered it in the DSM diagnosis or mental health disorder. I believe he goes back to I don't know, 200 years before the current information we have about ADD. And so according to him, when we look at texts, medical texts, before 100, 200 or more years ago, people were already discussing diagnosis that we now can say is most probably they were talking about ADD. Now, this 2 to 3% of lack of growth in the brain does cause 30% delay in these abilities of the executive functioning. So according to Dr. Barkley, let's say that you have a 10-year-old. If they have ADD, they're really functioning as a 7-year-old. If they are 16-year-old, they're functioning as an 11-year-old. If they're 18, they're functioning as a 12-year-old. So there is a huge delay in these abilities. And, there might be some catching up. However, there might not be a whole lot of catching up for some people in certain areas of the executive functioning skills. And now maybe I have whet your appetite. So hopefully let's get going and let's get deeper into what these executive functionings are and how they develop in childhood. So as you know, when we are children and then we are growing, we are developing in our growth and in our learning. And there are many areas where growth is happening, where development is occurring. There's fine motor skills. There is motor skills. There are cognitive abilities that are getting formed. The idea of morality and right and wrong is forming during this period of childhood. We are also learning and building social emotional skills. We are learning our language abilities, skills, and development around language is happening during this time as well. So during this child development, we are also developing our executive functioning skills. And there are 5 executive functioning skills that are impacted in a person that has ADD ADHD. And the first one is the ability to stop. The ability to stop is something that our brain has an impact on. And so, you can think about the ability to stop in many areas. When we want to say something, we don't want to just blurt things out. We want to pause, think about what we want to say, and then we want to say things out. Or let's say when, children, when they see things, they'll just take things. However, again, as we are growing and developing and as adults, we want to have the ability to stop. If I just like something at the store, I'm not going to take it and put it in my pocket. Or even if I know that I have to pay for it, I'm not going to just automatically take it. I'm going to have a process in my mind. Do I have a budget for it? Do I need it? Just because I like it, am I going to take it? So the ability to stop is one of the executive functioning skills. And the executive functioning skills, as described by Dr. Barkley, are kind of like steps. They almost, fall one after the other. And so you will see how they will build onto each other. The second executive functioning is the ability to visualize. And so the ability to visualize allows us to have a theater in our mind. And it allows us then to build what will later be known as hindsight and foresight. So when we are, thinking about our life, we will have certain images and visual imagery that we have again within our mind's eye, and then we are able to think about our past. We're able to reflect on what I did in my past. Did it work for me? Was it right for me? Do I want to do it again? Do I want to do something different? That is the ability to have hindsight. If I could go back in time and if I could redo, what would I do differently? And then I will bring those lessons into the here and now, and I will do things a little bit differently. And then the idea of foresight is, things that I want in the future, visualizing for myself what I want my life to look at. A lot of times I'll do visualization exercises with my clients and I'm asking them, what do you want in the future? And so there is this, play, and there is this visual imagery that happens in our executive function area, which allows us then to have foresight. This is what I want for myself in the future, and how do I go about it? If I want to be an architect, how do I get there? What are the steps that it will take me to get to where I want to be? I will visualize, and I don't know about yourself, I oftentimes will think with my paper on hand. I want to draw things, I want to write things, I'll put arrows, and I'm also a visual learner, so I tend to visualize externally as well as internally about what I want in my life. And so this visual imagery is a really important part of the executive functioning system of our brain. The third executive functioning is the idea of self-talk. So if you will look at children, and in the beginning, first they're just learning to use language. They're learning words, they are developing their language skills, right? And then there is growth in that how they speak to each other and to us. A lot of times I have a little boy that's 3 years old, and so he will just talk to me, and sometimes he talks gibberish, or sometimes he will talk even in sentences, but he just wants to say whatever he wants to say. It's not like we're having a conversation. So children ages 3 to 5 will have parallel talk. Even if there's children in a room talking to each other, they're really not talking to each other. They're just kind of simultaneously talking, and they are in their play world. And then what happens is that when children are 5 to 7 years old and then older, what they learn to do is they learn to take this self-talk or this talk, this external talk, and they learn to internalize that talk, and now they learn to have an internal dialogue. And so Dr. Russell Barkley says that this part of the executive functioning is weak, very weak in children and adults that have ADD. So this ability to have self-talk, that is not as strong and present in people with ADD. So another example is that, when we are, let's say when I get up in the morning or just throughout the day, I might have this internal dialogue in myself, within myself, of the things that I need to do or things that I need to get done. So there's this kind of gentle dialogue of, I need to get up by, a certain time, before 9 a.m. I need to get my daughter's breakfast ready. I need to get her lunch prepared. I need to get her out of the door. I need to make sure that she's getting ready. So there's this internal dialogue of getting myself to do the things that I need to do and accomplish and feel, successful in life with, again, my goals. There is this dialogue that helps me to do that. And those are weak in children with ADD or adults with ADD. Now, all of these executive functionings are there in a person with ADD. It's not like they're not there. However, they are very, very weak. It's kind of like they are asleep. They're there, they are delayed, they are, again, the parts of the brain are slightly smaller. And so the way it impacts is that it just feels like this part of the brain is sleepy, or again, functioning at a very minimal capacity. The fourth executive functioning skill is known as the mind's heart. So this is our social emotional skills. This is our ability to know our own emotions and to, again, stop ourselves when we are in a social situation where acting out our emotions would be ineffective. This is also reading other people's emotions and to be able to, let's say, empathize or connect with others, and to regulate our emotions in such a way that we can interact with the world in the way that our world, wants to be around us, is happy with us, or is interacting with us. So oftentimes, according to Dr. Berkeley, he will say that children will appear like they don't have social skills. And so if you think about the impulsivity, or you think about the fact that people that have ADD, children with ADD, have the inability to stop themselves, that inhibition aspect is not there, or is very, very weak, so it's hard for them to, let's say, stop and think and say, well, if I say this, will it be kind? Will it be nice to another person? Or if I hit this child, is that the appropriate way to act in this environment? And so this this executive functioning skill impacts how a child and how a person will interact with their world, and then in return how their social environment would interact back with them. And so, this is our ability to, again, stop ourselves in regards to our emotions, and the ability to regulate our emotions in respect to other people's emotions, so that we are socially apt, we are socially able to be around other people in a way that our goals are accomplished, meaning that we have friends, we are in a relationship, a long-lasting relationship. If we are in a marriage, that we are able to maintain our marriage and our relationship with our children. Are we, quick to be easily angered? Are we quick to be impulsive and say mean things? Or are we able to regulate ourselves and take the pause that is necessary in relationships and in life? The fifth executive function is the mind's playground. Now, this is the ability to use our mind, and it comes from play, and it's the ability to be creative and solution oriented, and to be able to problem solve when we are adults and later on in adulthood. So it does come from the ability to play when we are children, and it comes from creativity. And I'm not saying that people with ADD are not creative. They are very, very creative. Some of the most, talented artists out there do have ADD. So it's not about creativity alone. It's just, again, using the mind and the playground of the mind and the ability to hold information in the mind that impacts later the ability to plan things, to execute things, to prepare for things. So some of the most important skills in adulthood. And if you're somebody that doesn't have ADD, you might relate to this, that everything that you have to do in life, there is a preparation stage, then there's an execution stage, and then there is post execution where you need to kind of wrap up, right? And then there is sit down and evaluating the future scenario, right? So even like getting in the car, before I get in the car, what do I need to do? I need to prepare the car. Do I need to, as a mom, do I need to take snacks for my kids? Do I need to take my water bottles? If I'm going to return things, are the things that I need to return, are they actually in the car? This is all the preparation, what time do I need to be there? How long do I have? When do I need to leave? So there's a lot of preparation that happens before I even sit down in the car. And then when I sit down in the car, I do my final checks of, okay, do I have everything? Do I have my sunglasses? Do I have my wallet? Do I have my driver's license? Do I have my car? And then I execute. I drive to the place I have to go and I do the things that I have to do. And then when I come back home, I put the things away, put things where they belong. Let's say I've gone to the grocery store, do I just, okay, come home and then go and do the thing that I wanted to do? Or do I again come home and then prepare for the next stage, which is again, let's say putting the groceries away and, emptying the car and preparing the car for the next time by it being empty without the things that were there before, putting things away, putting jackets where they are, these kinds of things. Now, this is just a mundane, everyday kind of example. However, when it comes to project, there's a whole field of project management. There are these steps that you need to take to execute the thing that you want to do. You can't just do the thing you want to do. So a lot of times, this is the part of the executive functioning where this is impacted, and people that have ADD, they tend to just execute things, and they struggle with the planning and the preparation, and then just even the idea of problem solving, or to think about how, let's say you have a problem and let me sit down and brainstorm and think about what are the multiple ways of solutions or multiple ways of addressing this problem. Again, that part for them can be weak or can be challenging. It's a vulnerable part, if this part of their executive functioning has been impacted and affected. So those are the 5 executive functioning skills that are impacted when a person has ADD and ADHD. Now, if you have looked at and listened to my previous video about the symptoms of ADD and ADHD by the medical diagnosis, you will be able to see how some of these are related to those symptoms that we talked about. The impulsivity is about the inability to stop, the inability for inhibition, right? So a lot of times, what people with ADD do is, again, they just there is an event or a trigger, and then they just end up executing the thing, whether it's impulsivity in doing or impulsivity in talking. Another example that I often tend to use is road rage. With road rage, the person with ADD can't control themselves, can't control their anger. So they might drive faster or try to challenge the driver. They might want to curse at the driver. They might want to, do all these things that road rage has. And their ability to stop themselves and to think about, other factors, and the fact that their road rage is not going to teach the other guy or woman the lesson of not driving this way. They are not able to think about that, or again, that stop factor isn't there. And so these are the 5 executive functioning, and you can see how they relate to some of the symptoms that we have discussed in the previous video. If you haven't had a time to look at it, I would recommend that you go back and look at that video so you have an idea about the symptoms that are there when it comes to the medical diagnosis of ADD ADHD. In my previous video, I had also mentioned that Dr. Barkley has a little bit of a disagreement, or, just this idea that perhaps the DSM isn't, considering all aspects of a person that is struggling with ADD. And I know myself, and maybe yourself as well too, now that I've understood the executive functioning system and how it impacts someone and what are those executive functions and how they help us and what they help us do. Now I just have a better understanding of ADD and what the ADD person is experiencing and what these struggles are about. Now, he does say, as I had mentioned in that previous video, that some people have a lot of inattention and hard to focus symptoms and problems. And their major problem is not this impulsivity and not that they can't stop themselves, this rev isn't there. So he feels that some people get misdiagnosed. People that have a hard time with attention might get diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. And because there is no diagnosis in the DSM, or there is no better way of explaining their experience, what happens is they get dumped into this category of they have ADD, ADHD. And he has been researching with other colleagues, and there's been work being done with another diagnosis that is not in the DSM just yet. However, there are efforts to figure out what is happening with these individuals and children that are having a hard time with attention and focus. And, could there be a better explanation for their experience and that they are not the typical ADD, ADHD person? So, we have that's we're waiting on that, more information to be coming on that. I hope that this video on the executive functioning and the science behind ADD has been helpful for you. And I hope that this video will serve to not make a person or family that is experiencing ADD with their loved one to feel hopeless. However, it is to help all of us understand that people that have ADD and ADHD, it's not that they don't want to do something or that they are being willful or that they are being arrogant, and there's a video I have about 5 myths of ADD ADHD, and we're going to talk about those. This video hopefully is to break that belief that ADD people are doing this purposely. It is not that. It is a real struggle for a person with ADD and ADHD when it comes to these skills, when it comes to time and the ability to hold time and show up for things in time or to understand time. And in fact, if I can add one more last thing, this has to do with the second executive functioning. So there is this idea of being time blind. A person with ADHD really is a time blind person. So just like a person that is nearsighted, I was born with nearsightedness. So when I was around, I believe I was 10, 11 years old, my eyesight was weakening and I had to get glasses. I didn't do this to myself. I didn't cause this to myself. And I know there are alternate viewpoints of eyesight and healing and alternate, and I am, going to put that to the side for now. And, I didn't do that to myself. My parents didn't do that to myself. It was just biologically that I was born with nearsightedness. So I had to get glasses so that I could see. So same thing with people with ADHD. They need their version of glasses and support so that they can better use their knowledge, because they have a ton of knowledge. That knowledge has a hard time getting executed. So the executive functioning skills, which are in the prefrontal cortex, primarily the front part of the brain, those are a little bit lagging, and I said kind of asleep or delayed. So the knowledge is there, the skill is there. They know the how, they know the what. It's just that they need their version of glasses to make their front part of the brain to work with their knowledge and to make sure that it executes and it happens. Okay, so I hope that this video will serve to help people and families that have ADD, ADHD, or loved ones that have ADD and ADHD, that they are not being willful. They are not doing this purposely. There are real struggles that they are experiencing, and we need to help them. They also need to help themselves. You also need to help yourself if you are a person with ADD that is listening, and that you need your version, the ADHD version of glasses, so that your prefrontal cortex can help you the way my eyes can help me. Now, yes, I'm not wearing glasses, and we have things like contacts and LASIK and all these other great things, which, the ADD person also has tools that they have to use and utilize to help themselves. We'll talk about that more in another video. I hope that you have found this video to be helpful. I know that in learning about the executive functionings, for me, it was a, wow, light bulb moment as far as understanding the ADD brain. And I hope that it's been the same for you. Please come back and join me for another video. We will be talking more about ADD. We will be talking about other things, mental health related, relationship related. We will be doing interviews with Muslim mental health experts on this channel. So please stick around, subscribe to my channel. Please like my video and share with your friends if you have found it to be helpful. It helps me to know that my content is helpful and making sense, and that I can make more content for you. Take care and have a great and amazing rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum.